and told that this was going to be in the press, I died. The person you knew, whether you voted for me or against me, died. My view is that that is an injustice.
Judge,
as I indicated earlier, it is an injustice to me, but it is a bigger injustice to this country. I don't think any American, whether that person is homeless, whether that person earns minimum wage or is unemployed, whether that person runs a corporation or small business, black, white, male, female, should have to go through this for any reason. The person who appeared here for the real confirmation hearings believed that it was okay to be nominated to the Supreme Court and have a tough confirmation hearing. This person, if asked by George Bush today, would he want to be nominated, would refuse flatly and would advise any friend of his to refuse. It's just not worth it.
Judge, you're here, though. Some people have been spreading the rumor that perhaps you're going to withdraw. What's Clarence Thomas going to do?
I'd rather die than withdraw. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process. Not for the purpose of serving on the Supreme Court, but for the purpose of not being driven out of this process. I would not be scared. I don't like bullies. I've never run from bullies. I never cry uncle, and I'm not going to cry uncle today, whether I want to be on the Supreme Court or not.
Well, Judge, I hope next Tuesday you make it. And I believe you will. And I believe you should. And I believe it's important for every American that you do. Because I think in your short 43 years of life, you've just about seen it all. And if anybody's in a position to help their fellow men and women under the Constitution, then I have to say you are. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for not backing down. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, we're down to senators having 5 minutes, and I will begin to yield back and forth. Judge, let me make sure I understand one thing. Do you believe that interest groups went out and got Professor Hill to make up a story? Or do you believe Professor Hill had a story, untrue from your perspective, that, as referred to here, groups went out and found? Which do you believe?
Senator, I believe that someone, some interest group, I don't care who it is, in combination, came up with this story, and used this process to destroy me.
got Professor Hill to say, to make up a story?
I believe that in combination, this story was developed or concocted to destroy me.
With Professor Hill? I mean, that's a critical question. Are you saying with Professor Hill that a group...
That's just my view, Senator.
I know, I'm trying to make sure I understand
There's
it.
no details to it or anything else. The story developed. I do not believe the story is not true. The allegations are false. And my view is that others put it together and developed this.
And put it in Professor Hill's mouth?
I don't know. I don't know how it got there. All I know is that the story is here, and I think it was concocted.
Well, Judge, I know you believe that, and I am not here to be able to or attempt to, at this moment, refute that. There has been an assertion that has just been made, and I want to know whether you had agreed with it, that it's important for us to keep our eye on the ball here. Either Professor Hill had a story that she told someone and it was taken advantage of by being leaked. That's one thing. She says that. And the other story that seems to be being painted now, not by you, I'm asking what you believe, is that a group sat down, decided to make up a story, and found a willing vessel in Professor Hill and got her to say it. Now, they are fundamentally different things in terms of culpability.
Senator, those distinctions are irrelevant to me. The story is false, the story is here, and the story was developed to harm me.
Thank you.
And it did harm me.
Let me go down the line here. Anyone, Senator Kennedy?
No, Judge, we just thank you for coming under extraordinary, difficult circumstances.
Well, I believe he is coming back to answer any of the charges, and I'll wait until then.
Senator Metzenbaum?
I have no comment.
Senator Simpson?
Well, it has been a powerful presentation by a powerful person. And I've known you for several years, and I've known Ginny before I knew you. I think it is very well that you were not here to hear the testimony of Ms. Hill. That was a good step, whosever idea that was, that you did not, of course you were not here, but that you didn't watch it. It would have driven you in a way I do not think would have been appropriate. And here we are. You've been before us for 105 days. We've seen everything, known everything, heard every bit of dirt, as you call it so well. And what do we know about Professor Hill? Not very much. I'm waiting for 105 days of surveillance of Ms. Hill. And then we'll see, who ate the cabbage. As we say out in the Wild West, this is an impossible thing. And now I really am getting stuff over the transom about Professor Hill. I've got letters hanging out in my pocket. I've got faxes. I've got statements from her former law professors, statements from people that know her, statements from Tulsa, Oklahoma, saying, watch out for this woman. But nobody's got the guts to say that because it gets all tangled up in this sexual harassment crap. I believe sexual harassment is a terrible thing. I had a bill in a year ago of doubling the penalties on sexual harassment. I don't need any test. Don't need anybody to give me the saliva test on whether one believes more or less about sexual harassment. It's repugnant, it's disgusting in any form. And the stuff we listen to, I mean, come on. From the moon. And it is a sexual stereotype. Just like asking you sexual stereotype questions about your personal life. Any woman would be offended by that. About your divorce. You did this, you did that. Talk about in reverse. Isn't a woman alive that would take the questions you've had to take and be just repelled by it? That's where the watershed is here. It is a good thing that this awareness goes up. It is a terrible, tragic thing that it should bruise you. And if we're really going to do it right, we're all mumbling about how do you find the truth. I'll tell you how you find the truth. You get into an adversarial courtroom, and everybody raises their hand once more, and you go at it with the rules of evidence, and you really punch around in it. And we can't do that. It's impossible for us to do that in this place. Chairman knows it, and he has been exceedingly fair. And so here we are, and we will not get to the truth in this process. But there is a truth out there, and that's in the judicial system. Thank God that there is such a system. It has saved many, many a disillusioned person who was, headed for the Stygian pits. So if we had 104 days to go into Ms. Hill and find out about her character, her background, her proclivities, and all the rest, I'd feel a lot better about this system. And I'm talking about the stuff I'm getting from women in America who are sending me things, and especially women in Oklahoma. Oh, that'll all become public. I said at the time it would be destructive of her. And some said, well, isn't that terrible of Simpson? A menacing threat. It wasn't menacing. It was true that she would come forward and she would be destroyed. She will, just as you have been destroyed. I hope you could both be rehabilitated. But I have a couple of questions, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, I haven't taken time, and I'll get to that. Angela Wright will soon be with us. We think. But now we're told that Angela Wright has what we used to call in the legal trade cold feet. Now, if Angela Wright doesn't show up to tell her tale of your horrors, what are we to determine about Angela Wright? Did you fire her? And if you did, what for? You said that.
Senator, I summarily dismissed her, and this is my recollection. She was hired to reinvigorate the public affairs operation at EEOC. I felt her performance was ineffective, and the office was ineffective. And the straw that broke the camel's back was a report to me from one of the members of my staff that she referred to another male member of my staff as a faggot.
As a faggot.
And that's inappropriate conduct, and that's a slur, and I was not going to have it.
And so you just summarily discharged her.
That's right.
That was enough for you.
That was more than enough for me. That's my recollection.
It's kind of the way you are, isn't it?
That's the way I am with conduct like that, whether it's sex harassment or slurs or anything else. I don't play games.
And so that was the end of Miss Wright, who's now going to come and tell us perhaps about more parts of the anatomy, I'm sure of that. And a totally discredited, and we just will get to the nub of things here, a totally discredited witness who does have cold feet. Well, Mr. Chairman, all of us have been through this stuff in life, but never to this degree. I've done my old stuff about my past and shared that. I won't get into those old saws, but I tell you, I do love Shakespeare, and Shakespeare would love this. This is all Shakespeare. This is about love and hate and cheating and distrust and kindness and disgust and avarice and jealousy and envy. All those things that make that remarkable bard read today. But boy, I tell you, one came to my head, and I just went and got it out of the back of the book. Othello. Read Othello. And don't ever forget this line. Good name in man and woman, dear my lord, remember this scene, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. What a tragedy. What a disgusting tragedy.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions, and it may take more than 5 minutes. I hope I could just follow them up and get this over with rather than waiting around. Judge, I have great empathy what you've been through. I happen to have a little experience going through a awful process. I think this is atrocious. I went through an atrocious process that I thought I'd never get over. I did, because like you, I had a strong family. I believed in myself, and I did not do the things I was accused of. So I have a kind of a feeling what you've gone through. Mine was not a sexual harassment charge, but I felt just about as bad as you did. I thought I was going to die. Thanks to my wife and family and some good friends, that didn't happen. And when the leaks came towards this senator, I must say there wasn't a howl except from the chairman of the Ethics Committee, who stood up on the floor of the Senate, and the majority leader, and very few other people stood up on the floor of the Senate as they did when the leaks came about you. So if nothing has come, at least for this senator, somebody gives a damn about leaks and breaking the rules. And maybe we'll finally put an end to that I think has caused you to go through what you've had to go through. Now, Judge Thomas, I think the question that Chairman Biden asked you, and you answered it in such a manner that it really is irrelevant how all this happened. The fact is that it happened. No matter whether Miss Hill plotted it, whether she was paid to do it, whether her conscience drove her to do it, the fact is that it has, in your judgment, ruined your name, and that you died 2 weeks ago. Is that fair to restate your position?
It's fair.
Now, Judge, based on that, and I think that the circumstances that give rise to these allegations against you are, I can't believe I'm here myself. I can't believe that this process is taking place to a United States appellate court judge who's been confirmed 3 times by this body, a life appointment, and you're even here, and I'm even here. I'm ashamed to be part of this process. But nevertheless, that's my job, and I'm here because the Senate said, go back and do it again. And we did it. We did it right, I believe. I think the chairman protected Mrs. Hill as she wanted to be protected, and he did it with the spirit of protecting her rights. And now, I won't go into the press anymore, beat up on them, I guess, enough, but we're here because it was leaked and the press made it. I don't think Professor Hill will ever fully recover from what she's gone through, regardless of what happens to you. And I don't know whether you will. And my question to you is, do you think you can recover from dying 1,000 deaths, having your name and your reputation ripped from you through this process? Can you recover as an individual and serve on the Supreme Court?
Senator, There was also a positive side of this.
Tell me what it is. Except raising the awareness of sex harassment, and I don't say that to minimal, but I think that awareness is out there and has been out there for a long time, if I may say myself, and I didn't need this experience to raise it for me, but please don't let me interrupt what you say, the positive side. Believe me, I'm looking for one, I'm praying for one.
During this process, the last 105 days and the last 2.5 weeks especially, I have never had such outpouring of love and affection and friendship. And people who know me, not people making these scurrilous assertions, but people who know me, supporting me and caring for me, helping me to recover from it and survive it. My wife, my son, whose reaction is just to be terribly angry. I think it showed me just how vulnerable I am as a human being and any American, that these kinds of charges can be given validity in a process such as this, and the destruction it can do. It has given me that sense. I think it's also shown people in our country what's happening. I didn't want them to see what happened to me. I didn't want my personal life or allegations about my sexual habits or anything else broadcast in every living room in the United States. But they see this process for what it is. And I think that's good. And hopefully it never happens to another American. Yes, I can heal. As I said in my opening remark, I will simply walk down the hill. If I'm not confirmed, so be it, and continue my job as a Court of Appeals judge. And hopefully live a long life, enjoy my neighbors and my friends, my son, cut my grass, go to McDonald's and drive my car, and just be a good citizen, and a good judge, and a good father, and a good husband. Yeah, I'll survive. My question was, will the country survive? And hopefully it will.
And you're confirmed?
I'll survive. A different person. I would have hoped, Senator, when I was nominated, that it would have been an occasion for joy. There has never been a single day of joy in this process. There's never been 1 minute of joy in having been nominated to the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
Judge Thomas, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, after our 10 days or whatever it was, 90 witnesses in your 5 days, I thought you were not just being gracious, but being sincere, where you thanked the chairman and this committee, and as you said today, you would have liked to receive more votes here, but you didn't, and that was the process. But I remember your words is that you said, I think I've been treated fairly, and I have no quarrel or no, ill feelings. Am I restating that correct, how you felt after your formal hearing?
That's right, Senator.
And I can understand that you don't feel that way today. And my question continues to go to the sense of you being confirmed. What does it do to somebody? Does it affect their ability to approach cases as you indicated, and satisfactorily so to this senator, approach cases as a Supreme Court judge? Can you be reborn in the sense of the loss that you have had to suffer here in the last 2 weeks? And how do you cope with it if you care of saying? And if you don't, I'll understand.
Senator, there's one thing that I've learned over my life, and that is that I'll be back. The other thing that I've learned in this process are things that we discussed in the real confirmation hearings, and that is our rights being protected, what rights we have as citizens of this country, what constitutional rights, what is our relationship with our government. And as I sit here on matters such as privacy, matters such as procedures for charges against individuals in the criminal context or civil context, this has heightened my awareness of the importance of those protections, the importance of something that we discussed in theory: privacy, due process, equal protection, fairness.
So, Judge, safe to say that what a way to have to come to it. And this senator was satisfied you didn't have to come to it, but you met the threshold for my vote. But what you're saying to us is that through this god-awful experience, you will be more sensitive towards the rights of accused. And that's because your rights have been violated. Is that correct?
I have been an accused.
And your rights, in your judgment, have been violated?
I think so. Strongly so.
Thank you, Judge Thomas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course you can.
Mr. Chairman, it's been mentioned here about it's been confirmed 3 times. My recollection is 4 times at the assistant superintendent, in the Civil Rights Division, and twice in EEOC, wasn't it?
That's right, Senator.
And then the civil court 4 times.
That's right.
So this will be the 5th time.
That's right, Senator.
I just want to make the record straight.
Thank you, Senator Thurmond.
Senator Grassley.
Judge Thomas, the thing that keeps going through my mind is all 14 of us sit here and you're being questioned all the time, is the verse about he who is without sin, let him be the first to cast a stone. I know you've gone through a lot of things. I've sinned. I can't cast that stone. And there isn't anybody perfect on this side either. As you stare at us, I keep hoping you think that there are at least half of this committee that voted for you, and that not everybody on this side of the aisle is your enemy. I heard on one of the commentaries on television more than once, and that's why I want to bring it up for you to give a response to, because I think it's got a very unfair message out there. I don't think it's come from anchor people. I think it's come from people that they've had on to make commentary, and not politicians. The parallel between you and Professor Hill is that why would she come forward? She doesn't have anything to gain by coming forward, so and didn't have to come forward, so she obviously would have to be telling the truth. And then in your case, it's implicit that you are lying because you have everything to lose. I would like to have you tell the American people your reaction to that comparison.
Senator, I think that people can rationalize just about anything. I've learned through this process that people have fit square pegs into round holes, and they do it very well and have no problem with that inconsistency. I don't know what Anita Hill has to gain. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in her mind. But I've already lost. I've lost my name. As I said before, I never aspired to the Supreme Court. I'm on the Court of Appeals. I love my job. I love what I do every day. I've lost everything in this process. I'm here not to be confirmed. I'm here to get my name back. All I have to gain from this process is to salvage a little bit of my integrity and a little bit of my name. Nothing more.
You haven't mentioned your grandfather at all this particular sitting. I would like to have you tell me what you think advice he would give to you if he were advising you today.
Well, Senator, in 1983, and this is something that I said during my real confirmation hearings, when I was getting hammered in the public and getting criticized, and I complained to him, he told me to stand up for what I believe in. That's what he'd tell me today. Not to quit, not to turn tail, not to cry uncle, and not to give up until I'm dead. He had another statement: give out, but don't give up. That's what he'd say to me.
Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. Senator Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Thomas, most of us have made the decision on the basis that you've asked for. There are, I think it's safe to say, a few members of the Senate who have not made the decision yet, and where what is happening here may be decisive. I read in one of the morning newspapers where Senator Brown was quoted as saying, we have two very credible witnesses. I think that those who, whether they're reporters in this room or viewing it on television, have come away with a good impression of both of you. But obviously, one person is telling the truth and one is not. And it is difficult to determine that. And you look at factors that weigh on either side that in a small way may be measurable. And let me just outline for you some of these factors, and if you suggest that I'm leaving out anything. On your side, the fact that she followed from one job to another. I understand her statement that the harassing ceased and she needed the job, but she did follow. Second, the phone calls, 11 phone calls in 7 years. Some of them can be explained, maybe all of them can be, I don't know. And some additional contact with you, limited, but some additional contact. And while psychiatrists say those who have sexual abuse, this is not an uncommon occurrence, nevertheless, it seems to me those weigh on your side. On the other side is, first of all, the much discussed question of motivation. She is clearly a reluctant witness. And as I sense it, motivation may be public service. Very difficult. You can stretch, but it's hard to find other motivation. Second, the detailed facts that she comes up with could be created, but it is difficult to imagine that. I don't happen to be a fan of lie detectors, but she volunteered to the FBI that she would take a lie detector test. I don't find generally that people who are not telling the truth volunteer to take lie detector tests. And finally, she experienced stomach pains only one time in her life due to job stress, she says, and her physician at least apparently partially confirms. And that was during this period that she was working for you. Now, none of these factors alone is enough. And maybe in combination, they are not enough. But what would you say to my colleagues in the Senate who are trying to weigh this thing and say, what are some more objective criteria that can be used as you weigh this?
Senator, I don't think there are objective criteria in weighing evidence. That's why you have rules of evidence and procedures in courts of law. This is not a court of law. That's why you have judges and finders of fact. That's why you have a careful review process. That's why you have statutes of limitations. That's why you have cross-examination by experienced trial counsels. That's why you have precedents. That's why you have a judicial system.
Let me ask you another question about the process. If you were on this committee and we came up with another similar situation, would we be better off having such a hearing in executive session without cameras, without reporters, without television sets, in executive session?
Senator, I think you should, in these instances, trust the FBI or experienced investigators. If you don't like their reports, I think you should stop relying on them. I don't think that this body can serve as a judicial system.
But we have to make judgments.
I don't think that this body can serve. This is a political body. I don't think it can serve as a judicial system.
I guess, again, the FBI does not draw conclusions, as you know from you've seen FBI reports. And we have to make judgments. And I don't think I don't know how we're going to improve the process.
I think that this is clearly wrong.
I think we are in agreement that the process has to be improved.
No, Senator, in the strongest terms, this process can only go one direction, and that is improvement. This is clearly wrong.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Colorado, Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Specter's already asked questions. We'll go, if he has any more, we'll go to him later. But
In trying to review what we've had before us, it strikes me that we have taken on a question that by measure is very difficult. It's not just that we've had two very persuasive people before us, but I've tried to make some notes as to what it is we're looking at. We're looking at a very serious charge. We're looking at a charge about activities, about very repugnant statements of an extreme nature. And the case is one where there are no witnesses. Normally when you have a disagreement, you've got some witnesses, but we don't have any witnesses here. There's no documentation here. There's nothing we can check in terms of the documents, because there are no documents that were made up at the time. There was no notification. Normally, with an event like this occurred, someone would bring a charge, or there would be a notice to the person who was accused. There's no notification here. We're looking at a charge that's 10 years old. It wasn't done yesterday. It wasn't done last week. It wasn't done 6 months ago or 5 years ago. It was done 10 years ago. That's some 20 times beyond the statute of limitations. Statute of limitations, as I understand it, is a number of days, or in some events as long as 6 months. This is 20 times the statute of limitations. And basically what we're called upon to prove, or you're called upon to prove, is negative. You're called upon to prove that 10 years ago you didn't do something. I'm not sure how you do that. I'm not sure how you prove a negative. One thing, I guess, that does come to mind is that you could call in every woman that's worked closely with you and show this committee whether or not you've exhibited that type of activity with others. And that is, it's difficult to prove a negative, but that's one thing to do. As I understand our rules, we have requested that those women be called in. The committee has decided not to allow that. I don't fault the chairman with that. I believe the chairman's tried very hard to be fair. We do have time limitations. But nevertheless, we're faced with trying to prove this question and not be able to listen to them. Now, I also followed up with a letter to ask that we at least require the FBI to take statements from these women who we don't have time to hear. And that request was turned down by this committee. I think that evidence is important and should be taken, but that evidence was turned down by this committee. I have asked, and the chairman has agreed to allow statements, if these women want to make them, to be entered in the record, and I think that will be helpful. I've also asked that the staffers, who there is reason to believe have evidence to offer here, be called. In talking with Professor Hill, in listening to her testimony, it became very clear that the reason she came forward with these charges is because these staffers told her there were rumors about sexual harassment, and there was an implication that she was involved in those rumors. And part of the reason I believe she came forward was in response to the stories they told her. And to not take that testimony, I think, is just plain wrong. We've made that point, and that request has been turned down. The bottom line, I think, is it's tough to decide this case. I think there are two avenues that we can look at. One, if the event took place, what kind of conduct would it have gendered in her, and what kind of conduct would have engendered in you? I haven't got a complete list, but I think there's a possibility, if the very severe conduct took place, that it could have resulted in a complaint from her. It did not. No complaint was made. Is that determinate? No. There are certainly reasons that complaints would not be brought forth, but it is one question to look at. No notes were made of the incident. There was no effort at the time of the incident to find another job. There was no effort at the time of moving to the EEOC to find another job, even though she indicated that she didn't want to continue on. She made no effort to check for another job in the Department of Education or in the private sector. Even after the incident, there was no effort to cut off contacts, either in terms of finding another job or in terms of even after having left the job, contacts continued. Now, it strikes me, if the incident, as vile as it is described, took place, that there may well be a reason to not continue contacts. There was no mention of these charges when we were up for confirmation in 1982. There were no mention of these charges when you were up for reconfirmation in 1984. No one came forward. There was no mention of these charges when you were up for confirmation for the Circuit Court of Appeals. There are even some reports that have come of her praise of you after the incidents. Now, none of these by themselves determine the issue, but But all of them, I think, bear on the question of whether or not it happened. Because if it did happen as vile conduct as it's described, it surely must have affected these 9 specific examples, and I suspect more. That brings me to what I hope you will search your mind for. It strikes me if this incident happened, it would not only affect her conduct toward you, but it would affect your conduct toward her. What is alleged is that you repeatedly asked her out, and she refused. What is alleged is that you uttered very vile words, and she did not react the way you wished her to. I would like you, if you're willing, to itemize for us decisions you had to make about Professor Hill in terms of job references, in terms of retention for jobs, in terms of pay, in terms of evaluation, in terms of references, and in terms of assistance. What did you do in your terms of your conduct after this alleged event took place?
Senator, my treatment of Anita Hill was consistent throughout. As I've indicated, her allegations are false. She repeatedly received promotions as scheduled, as far as I can remember. In fact, she may have been promoted on an accelerated basis. Her assignments for her age and experience at that time, I think, were fairly aggressive. I certainly made sure that when she decided to leave that I assisted her, and I have kept contact with her, not on a regular basis, but certainly returned her calls, and whenever she needed help, responded to that. That's during and after. My conduct is consistent with my treatment of all of my special assistants, particularly those who do a good job. There is nothing in my conduct toward her that would indicate any negative events. Her conduct toward me over the years has been precisely the same. It's always been warm and cordial, professional. This is the first I've heard of any allegations, and certainly as I've indicated, or 2.5 weeks ago, certainly as I indicated, they did not occur. But my conduct toward her is the same as my conduct toward my other special assistants who are successful or who perform well. I would look for, if these events had happened, some disparity in that, and there is no disparity in that. My relationship with her, I think, is at this time or prior to this event was pretty much the same as my relationship with my other former special assistants.
Is there anything you can think of in your conduct that would suggest you retaliated?
Oh, absolutely not, Senator.
Are you back? Thank you.
Senator Khol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Judge, all of our hearts and our concerns, our sympathy go out to you and your family for the travail which you have undergone here. And I think it's important to recognize that it is a collective travail that extends institutions of government that have suffered. The American people have suffered greatly, and Hill has suffered greatly. This has been a very damaging affair, and many, many people have gotten hurt. I don't know as there's anybody in our country who's been helped by this unhappy situation that has occurred and which has brought us here today. I'd like to offer the observation and get the response from you that regardless of all the other reasons that brought us here, things like leaks which should not have occurred without any question, regardless of whatever reasons that we may have been brought here today, there is a single most important reason without which we would not be here today. irrefutable first cause, and that is Professor Hill, the person who is an African American, hired by you, trained by you, promoted by you, a person that you have described repeatedly as smart, tough-minded, resilient, effective. That person leveled a charge against you, sex harassment, a charge that you have said is a very, very serious charge and cannot be taken lightly. And Anita Hill and all that she represents and the relationship that you had with her is what brings us here today. Do you have a comment on that, sir?
I don't agree with that, Senator. I have been exposed to this process for 105 days. 105. I wasn't nominated last week, and confirmation hearing set for this week. I think this is wrong. I think this is wrong.
At the end of the nomination process, you said, as you said to Senator DeConcini, and he repeated back to you, you said that you had been treated up to that point fairly.
I was treated fairly, Senator, but this is 105 days. That's a month ago. That's a month ago.
That's 30 days ago.
Yeah.
Right.
This process is wrong, Senator. There's no way, as far as I'm concerned, that you can validate it.
But I don't.
The allegations, anyone can make an allegation. I deny those allegations. I have always cooperated with the FBI. Think about who you're talking to. I have been a public figure for 10 years. I have been confirmed 4 times. I've had 5 FBI background checks. I have had stories written about me. I've had groups that despise me looking into my background. I've had people who wanted to do me great harm. You're talking about a person who ran an agency, 2 agencies to fight discrimination, who, if he did anything stupid like this, gross like this, had everything to lose, who adamantly preached against it. It just seems as though I'm here to prove the negative in a form without rules and after the fact. I think that all this has done is give a forum to people who can make terrible charges against individuals who have to come here for confirmation. I think this is all this has done. And it has harmed me greatly, Senator. That is not to say that sex harassment is not serious. My record speaks for itself on that. There is a forum for that. You have agencies for that. You have courts for that, to deal with those. You cannot deal with those in this process, in this manner. What you're doing is you are inviting and validating people making very serious charges against other individuals who do not have the capacity to extricate themselves from it.
I think you're absolutely right. I still would like to make the point, if I may, very respectfully, that the charge was brought not by somebody that was a stranger to you, but by somebody who was very close to you in a very important job with you for a very long time.
She was not there a very long time, Senator, and it was in 1983 that she left.
Right. Finally, I'd like to say, Judge Thomas, and to all of us who are here today and listening, that this is obviously not what America ought to be. And while we want to get to the truth in this particular case, the truth will be well served if all of us stop and think long and hard about what we are doing to our nation. We simply have to restore civility and decency to the public debate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Specter, and then to you. I hope the principals will limit their questions to 5 minutes or less. They've had plenty of time to question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of more questions. Judge Thomas, the visits which you've testified about to the home of Professor Hill had not been known, at least to me. And my question to you is, how do you square that with your policy of not socializing or not dating anybody in the office? Was there any element of socializing at all in the visits which you've described to Professor Hill's apartment?
Senator, I didn't consider it socializing. It was, of course, it would be more in the nature of my talking to my clerks or talking to my special assistants outside of the office. I did not consider it anything other than a professional, cordial talk or chat. And of course, she's indicated, I guess, in some communications with the committee that I went over to help her with a stereo. But I would not have considered it socializing.
Judge Thomas, when I met with you on the morning of September 27th, before the Judiciary Committee voted, I had asked you at that time about these charges, having seen the FBI report the night before. And I was asking you about the question of motivation, and you made some comments to me at that time, although somewhat sensitive, I think are worth exploring for just a moment now. And that was the comment you made about a possible concern that Professor Hill might have had regarding your dating a woman who was of a lighter complexion. Would you amplify what had happened or testify as to what had happened in that regard?
Senator, I think it is sensitive, and I think enough sensitive matters have been discussed here. I would reluctantly discuss it. Was merely speculating and groping around for some rationale, and the point that I was making to you is that there seemed to be some tension between, as a result of the complexion, the lighter complexion of the woman I dated and the woman whom I chose to be my chief of staff or my executive assistant, and some reaction, as I recall it, to my preferring individuals of the lighter complexion.
And did Professor Hill not get a promotion that she was working for within your staff?
Again, I can't remember the exact details of it, but I think she wanted to have that position, the executive assistant position. But that's, again, Senator, that is speculation as to what the motivation would be, and I hesitate to even mention it here.
And finally, you had mentioned, but there hadn't been any detailing given to the comment about an associate of yours who classified Professor Hill as your enemy, which you had disregarded because of your overall view of the generalized loyalty of your staff. Can you amplify about what happened in that regard?
Well, there were some members of, at least one member of my staff, who felt that she did not have my best interest at heart, and he would continue to, as I remember it, articulate that point of view. I would again dismiss it.
Well, did he tell you why he felt that way?
It must have been based on specific things at that time. I don't recollect the bases of his conclusion or his statements, but he would say it repeatedly when he saw evidence of it.
Thank you very much, Judge Thomas. I'm glad to conclude before the red light went on.
Thank you very much.
Senator Heflin.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just take the seconds. I want to clarify one thing. One members of my staff thought there might be some misunderstanding about it. I accuse no one of rape, date rape in it at all. And the only thing that I was using as a comparison was that when you have date rape offenses, you seldom have any witnesses, any corroborating witnesses, and I was using that to the analogy that in this instance, we don't have any witnesses or any corroborating witnesses at the fact. That's all.
Senator Leahy.
Chairman, I'll be brief. We could go around, and we're going to be back basically to the same position, Judge, where you and I left last when we, I think, agreed on the fact that there's irreconcilable conflict in the testimony, and I know you feel strongly which way that should come down. I'm not at all happy with the whole process. This is my third term here, and I've sat in 4 different committees that have had confirmation processes of people. Spent more time on this one than any other nomination in nearly 18 years. And I can only gather how difficult it has been for you, for your family, your wife, son, others. You're here with a good friend of all of ours and a tower of integrity in the U.S. Senate, Senator Danforth. I know how difficult it's been for him. I chatted with him briefly this morning. And I do not like at all, as a United States Senator, I do not like at all the way we've been brought here. The chairman stated, and virtually everybody on the committee has supported the position he took of how we got here. I was glad to hear the chairman and the ranking member state that an investigation will be made of where this material came from. It was out here. And I assume that that's going to be completed, and we will find out. Especially want to know because I got to see that FBI report about 3 days after it was in the newspapers for the first time. I'd like to read them in a little bit different sequence. But we were sent by the Senate to try to find an answer. A very difficult process. And I suspect that everybody watching this is trying to figure out what the answer is, just like we are. Telephone calls, I've just been advised, into my office, absolutely split down the middle. I would hope that nobody would do it by polls, but would do it by their best judgment. And I would hope that we might find a way where we are sure that when we do a confirmation process, we're always dealing with the facts. I don't know the answer in this one. We still have a long time to go. You can think of 100 places you'd rather be. I can think of at least 100 places I'd rather be, all in my home state. And we may never come to the final conclusion we want. We may never come to the final conclusion what has happened here. And you know, if that happens, this is even a greater tragedy than many think. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let me, Judge, a couple things. I'll let you go. First of all, this unfortunately is not the first time this committee has been presented with a situation like this. It's been the first time we've been presented one that involved a Supreme Court justice. We have other people nominated before this court where there are allegations by former wives of mistreatment and wife beating. There's no appropriate form to resolve that, as you point out. Now, we have an option in that particular case to say, well, we'll send it to the court first. Before we decide whether to confirm this particular person, have the court decide that issue. Believe me, I'd like this. I didn't sign on to this job or run for it to be a judge. If I wanted to do that, I'd be a judge now in my home state. I don't want to be a judge. I hate this job. But all of my colleagues here were telling everybody how awful the process is. I'm going to be completely blunt about it. It's like democracy. It's a lousy form of government, except no one's figured out another way. Now, I can turn around and I can say to this particular person whose wife has come forward and said it's been abused, I can say, I tell you what,
we're going to disregard that, and we're going to confirm you anyway. Or I can say, I don't believe it, therefore, I'm not going to tell these fellas, which I have done on other matters unrelated to wife beating. There's been more nominees sent up here with a lot of administrations that have had drug problems I've never even told these folks about. Because they happened 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I take the heat and I'll take the responsibility and I'll continue to do as long as I'm chairman, no matter what these guys think of this process. Okay? Number one. Number two. When an allegation of consequence comes forward, I do not have the recourse to send it to the courts. I have the recourse only to send it to my colleagues. There is no other institutional way of doing it. I made a judgment on this one. My trust was violated by somebody. And then the fat was in the fire. We'd be in the same position if the day before the hearing began, Ms. Hill, unrelated to any statement of this committee, stood up and held a press conference and said, as I spoke with counsel, as the possibility could happen from the White House, and just held a press conference. Be in the same spot. We could say we're not going to resolve that. Let's put this nomination on hold and send it to the courts. Not a possibility. Not able to do that, no matter what my colleagues who are now telling everybody how horrible this process is. Now let me say another thing. This isn't over. Your grandfather's right. You have no right to give up. There's compelling arguments to be made for you, and they may end up being made by me and others. For example, one of the arguments made against you constantly by those who opposed your nomination is here's a guy who's sucked this. He's suckered it. He's gone out and he's laid down for people for it. And he's not dumb. A guy who wanted this in the beginning. I heard people coming to us and testifying saying, you wanted this and planned this since the late 70s. Well, if you planned this in the late 70s and you did this, you're one of the dumbest people I've ever run across in my life. And you don't impress me as being dumb. Your defenders here haven't even been smart enough to figure out to make that defense for you. My job is not to defend you or to prosecute you. It's to see to it you get a fair shot in a system that's imperfect, but it's a good system. Now, everybody points out what hadn't been made here. Every expert that's ever testified before me in this committee on an issue that I do know something about, and I've spent, with the exception of maybe one person on this committee, more time dealing with abuse against women and the surrounding circumstances than anybody else in the Senate. And every expert comes forward and says, there's a pattern. It doesn't happen in isolated incidents. It's a pattern. If there's not a pattern, to me, that's probative. That has some dispositive weight. No one's proved a pattern here of anything. We're not finished yet, but no one's proved a pattern. Again, these people have decided already once and for all they're for you or against you. You need better lawyers. You need to hire me. I'm getting fed up with this stuff about how terrible this system is. I hear everybody talk about how terrible the primary system is. We're big boys. I knew when I ran for president everything was free game. Anybody who runs for the Supreme Court or is appointed to the Supreme Court, to be more precise, should understand. This is not Boy Scouts. This is not Cub Scouts. In the case of the president, it's for the right to be leader of the free world, and no one ever said it would be easy. And whoever goes in the Supreme Court is going to determine the fate of this country more than anybody. For the next 20 years, we're going to have people, scrupulous and unscrupulous, respond and react. And this is not a referendum on whether or not sexual harassment is a grave offense. I said from the beginning, this is about whether or not sexual harassment occurred. And lastly, Judge, with me from the beginning and at this moment until the end, the presumption is with you. Now we're going to hear more witnesses are going to come in and corroborate your position and hers. We'll find out whether they're telling the truth or not as best as we are capable of doing, just like you as a judge are when you look them in the eye and make a judgment. So, Judge, this is less directed at you than it is to my pontificating colleagues, Democrat and Republican alike. So, Judge, I have not made my judgment based upon this proceeding because we have not heard all the evidence. And the last thing I'll point out, the next person that refers to an FBI report as being worth anything obviously doesn't understand anything. FBI explicitly does not in this or any other case reach a conclusion. Period. Period. So, Judge, there's no reason why you should know this. The reason why we cannot rely on the FBI report, you wouldn't like it if we did, because it is inconclusive. They say he said, she said, and they said. Period. So when people wave an FBI report before you, understand, they do not reach conclusions. They do not make, as my friend points out more adequate, they do not make recommendations. Judge, it's no fun, but there are certain things in our society that have occurred that the nature of the offense is an offense that is almost always takes place where there can be and will be no corroborating evidence, and all of us are susceptible to that errant charge. And if you don't think that we're going to see individuals up here charged, individuals in the Senate, individuals in the workplace charged, maybe even not without merit charged. So, Judge, it is, everybody says we know how you feel. No one can know how you feel. That always excites me when I hear people tell me how it feels. Oh, you lost a family. I don't know how it feels. Oh, you lost this. I know how it feels. Oh, you went through that and they ruined your reputation by it. I know how it feels. No one knows how it feels. But I hope we stop this stuff. The press did nothing wrong. It is not their fault. It is the nature of what happens here when something goes public. This is not a right and wrong until it comes down to a decision about you. And the presumption is with you. With me, the presumption is with you, and in my opinion, it should be with you until all the evidence is in and people make a judgment. So, Judge, I don't know exactly how you feel. But you've clearly demonstrated how you feel. And some of us, if not all of us here, have an inkling how you feel. And like I said, I ran for this job to affect foreign policy, to affect domestic policy, not to be a judge. If I wanted to be a judge, I'd arranged for that a long time ago. Judge, wait till it's over. It will be over in the next 2 days to make your judgment. You will not be unaffected by this no matter what happens. Nobody goes through the white-hot glare of this process at any level for any reason and comes out unaffected.
But Judge, nobody's reputation is a snapshot. It's a motion picture. And the picture's being made, and you've made a vast part of it the last 43 years.
Yes, way. Judge, the chairman's a good man. He frequently votes with me.
Judge, I voted against you. Have nothing to do with this. I voted against you. You and I disagree, like you said, on philosophy as I can best understand it. Judge, go home. Do whatever you're going to do. Thank you for being here. You're entitled to come back anytime you want to come back after we hear the rest of the witness. And no one should make any judgment about anybody till we hear the rest of the witnesses. We're recessed for 15 minutes.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to get everything ready. Okay.
As we have throughout these proceedings, we are opening up our phone lines to get your reaction to what you've been watching for the past 2 days as the questioning ends early this evening with Judge Clarence Thomas, although the hearing is scheduled to resume through the evening hours. Our first caller is from Memphis, Tennessee. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you. What's your comment, sir?
Well, I'd like to make 3 points if I could. I've watched it and watched it and watched it. Irregardless of how you place it, both male and female have irreparably harmed the nation. The first issue is the issue of the leaks. History says that they are never prosecuted. They should be in this case. The second point is that I can't help but think that Anita Hill's presentation somewhat smacks of the Fatal Attraction philosophy in the movie. The third issue is that future nominees to any position could very well look back on this and say that they will not subject themselves to this process in any way, shape, or form. I think that is just terrible.
Thank you for calling. Keep in mind that if you phone C-SPAN within the last 30 days, make room for others to get through with their comments. You'll see the number on the bottom of your screen. Our next caller from Rockville, Maryland. Hello. We'll take another caller from New York City. Hello, go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling you from Wheaton, Illinois.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I would just like to make a comment on the irony of some of the senators on this committee who are facing Judge Thomas and also facing Professor Hill. It seems to me that some of them at least have lived public lives of such open immorality, degeneracy, stupidity, that I just find it ironic to see these people questioning a man who, up until this moment, his integrity has never been questioned so severely before. I think it's particularly ironic to see Senator Kennedy sitting across the table from this man who is clearly his superior intellectually and morally.
Okay, thank you for calling. Sacramento, California. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I would just like to say, I've not approved of Judge Thomas anyway, but after listening to this, I'm truly sickened by him. He is, well, first of all, he didn't want them to vote for him on Tuesday. He asked for investigation, and now he's calling it a travesty. I don't see that. I mean, what, and he's not given an alternative, you know, another way that they could have done this. And also, he acts like it's so extremely terrible. He's lost his life and his name. As a victim of childhood sexual abuse, I didn't lose my life or my name.
Thank you for calling. Again, we'll keep our phone lines open during this recess, which is scheduled to last about 15 minutes. Portland, Oregon. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Yeah, Pacific Coast time out here at 12:30 approximately. In response to one of the comments from one of the senators, the judge remarked that the senator himself had no right to sit in judgment of him, that only God would be his judge. I reflect on how this will affect his positions once he is in fact defeated, in the event that he is. And secondly, irrespective of their nature, won't his personal doings in his background, in his life, affect his feelings when he sits in judgment over others, just as any of ours would?
Thanks for your comment. Newport News, Virginia. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Dina, and I'm calling from Virginia, and I think that Ms. Hill is fabricating this story, and I feel that it's going to hurt a lot of men that want to go to this nominee. They'll change their mind and not want to be put through all of this, and it's really hurting a lot of American people.
Okay, thank you for calling. Laramie, Wyoming. You're on the air.
Yes, just have a few comments to make. There have been many comments over the last couple of days on the confirmation process, and many comments also on sex discrimination. But the larger issue, at least from where I'm sitting, appears to be the general relationship between men and women. And there have been many injustices towards women in the past, and there may be many injustices now. But it appears that lawmakers, perhaps the Senate, and perhaps men in general may be overcompensating for many of those injustices. It is time, I believe, for lawmakers and men in general to stop overcompensating and try to put men back on an equal basis with women.
Thank you for calling. A program reminder, by the way, that these hearings will re-air in its entirety following the end of this evening's proceedings. Our next caller from Columbia, Maryland. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening. I'm a West Point graduate, black man. First of all, I've got 4 comments. One, without overwhelming proof that she has lied, it is impossible for the judge to defend himself against such a charge, whether it's true or false. The second thing is, with regard to clarification of black stereotypes, the judge referred to, the question is, what was the factual basis for the Jim Crow laws which were struck down by the Civil Rights Act of 1968? Number 3 is in reference to his sexual prowess, which she accused him of. She ought to be specific. In other words, who and when, and then those people should be brought before the panel where they can question them in detail. Now, the fourth and final thing is Ms. Hill has orchestrated her own Pearl Harbor, and I think we ought to respond to her infamy as we responded to Japan's. Nuke her publicly and disbar her.
Okay, thank you for calling. We will resume with your calls in just a moment. You're looking at what is known as the stakeout position, I believe, in the Russell Senate Office Building. Joining us now on the phone, though, is David Alpern, who is a senior editor with Newsweek magazine. Good evening to you, sir. How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you.
Wanted to get a reaction. I understand your magazine has just conducted a poll and released it. What does the information tell you?
The latest Newsweek poll shows that the number of Americans who believe that Clarence Thomas did sexually harass Anita Hill doubled after the first day's hearings, from 21% to 41% of women, from 13 to 23% of men. so that now women on balance believe Hill 41 to 28%. Men do not, only 23% to 36% who disbelieve her. But perhaps more important, less than a third of women and men thought that sexually harassing a woman should automatically disqualify a nominee to the Supreme Court. A majority of both sexes said that the confirmation should really depend on the circumstances.
How many people did you poll, and when was the polling conducted?
The total number of people polled was over 700, and it was split between Thursday night and Friday night, so that we could make a comparison between the two evenings.
Does today's testimony skew that poll in any way from your standpoint?
Well, today's testimony comes after the poll, and so more polls will have to be taken afterwards. Obviously, the poll taken last night can't account for the testimony that occurred today.
How is Newsweek covering this type of a story when it does carry over into the weekend?
Very well. We will have our reporters continuing to cover the proceedings, and we have the ability to make updates into the weekend, and that's how we'll do it.
You mentioned earlier about the awareness issue. Do any of the numbers surprise you in relationship to questions dealing with how people are now talking about the whole issue of sexual harassment?
Well, given the number of men, given the number of women who watch the proceedings and watch the reaction of men and said they just don't get it, it's interesting to note that, in fact, men agree with that. 69% of women and even a 58% majority of men in the latest Newsweek poll say that most men in the United States today do not understand the issues that concern women most. Only a quarter of women and a third of men would say they do. And yet the poll shows surprising conformity between views of men and women on many issues, at least for the record. And obviously this is a poll. A majority of women, 70%, but also 64% of men do not believe that women have been making gains unfairly at the expense of men. 45% of women and 43% of men, nearly identical, say the women's movement has done well improving women's lives. Another 23% of women and even more, 27% of men feel, in fact, the women's movement hasn't gone far enough. That's a positive rating of nearly 70, or from nearly 70%. Although, interestingly, only 34% of women today consider themselves feminists. That's compared to 56 back in 1986. The label feminist seems to be a problem, although the women's movement itself has quite favorable ratings.
And finally, sir, is it safe to say that this issue will be getting a lot of attention in next week's publication?
I would be safe to say that.
Thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it. David Alperin, who is senior editor with Newsweek magazine. We'll resume with more of your comments during this break of the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. Cheyenne, Wyoming. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to make 3 short points. First of all, I fully and strongly support Judge Thomas. I believe in his innocence. Second of all, I would like to bring up the point of possible reverse sex discrimination in the fact that maybe it was Miss Hill that was after Judge Thomas to use sex to get to a higher position, and he refused her, and that's why she's come forward at this time to get back at him. And third, I also believe that the pro-abortionists have used or been involved with her somehow to bring this out to try to stop him from getting on the court.
Thanks for calling. Manassas, Virginia, you're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling to say that I think that Miss Hill, her credibility has been lost, and furthermore, she seems to be sedated. No one's brought up the fact that she seems to be unstable for a person that's supposed to be an intelligent, intellectual person with a lawyer on top. I think she was very sedated yesterday.
Okay, thank you for calling. Tracy, California. Good afternoon to you.
I think President Bush should put a stop to this. He's the man that started it. He's the man who can stop it. It's doing too much damage to the United States. The heck with his political party and the Democrats, too. He's got to stop this before it's too late.
Thank you for calling. Again, a reminder that we will be re-airing the hearings later this evening when the live proceedings conclude. In the meantime, our next caller, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, calling because I guess this pertains back to Anita Hill's credibility. I haven't seen very much attention given to her background, the way she's perceived here in Oklahoma. I have several friends who have been students of hers at the OU Law School. In fact, in today's Daily Oklahoman, which is the largest paper here in Oklahoma City, one of the students was quoted as saying that she was the subject of much derision and even ridicule. not an effective juror. In fact, was often not prepared and did not seem to fully grasp a lot of the issues that she was discussing. And I just haven't seen very much attention focused on it. I think that's something that people should be aware of.
Thanks for calling. Hello, Hawaii. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I've got two questions. One question and two observations. One observation is I believe that Judge Thomas is innocent. Another observation was about homosexual rights. If Judge Thomas is a conservative, I'm not homosexual, by the way, but that he'd fire someone for using the word faggot in reference to another person, I found that really surprising and positive. And I don't know if that's been brought up in the past or what, but I think that homosexuals, if they were in league with the feminists in this situation, might want to reconsider.
Okay, sorry. We move on to Landon, Maryland. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm a 21-year-old African-American female who is presently a college student in the area. I have been watching this for the remainder of yesterday. Today I've been riveted because I feel that this is a very... it tells a lot about our country. It tells a lot about the state of racism, and that, you know, give or take 20, 30 years, we really have not come that far. We claim that we are the most democratic nation, and yet I feel that we are just as barbaric as anyone else. I feel that there might have been some indiscretions on both the part of Professor Hill and Judge Thomas, but I feel that we'll never know the truth. And I just feel unfortunate as an African-American female to be under a barbaric system which is basically comprised and controlled by the majority of white Anglo-Saxon men.
Thanks for calling. Gig Harbor, Washington. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm just concerned. Why does the president not feel that it's worth his time to listen to Ms. Hill? This really disturbs me. I realize that, probably Thomas hasn't because he knows what's going to be said, but I don't think it's fair that this woman has not been given any time, as far as the president is concerned. I think he owes her in the country some time.
Thanks for your comment. Annandale, Virginia. Good evening.
Yes, I'd like to say that many of your other callers in support of must have all expressed many of my feelings. But one thing is, I think this is a perfect example of how the media tends to protect the liberal agenda, and it does so in two ways. Number one, you see very few stories about why Senator Kennedy did not ask any questions in this proceeding. And number two, if Thomas were a liberal, the media would be reporting this much more as a white-dominated Senate coming down on a black individual.
Thanks for your comment. Torrance, California, you're next.
Yes, what I would like to say is just that it's highly suspect that you would have such a very intelligent woman as Miss Hill stand by for 10 years and just sit there, and all of a sudden, such a crucial time in life, when the judge is almost appointed, she comes forth with this fantastic information. Considering the fact that she's also an attorney, it's just beyond my mind that anybody would actually believe that she would sit so quietly for so many years and watch this just continue to escalate, and at the last second come forward with this. It's not correct to believe a woman like that, with the capabilities that she has mentally, that she would come forth at this point in time and say something that's truth.
Okay, thanks for your comment. You're looking at a live shot of the hearing room inside the Russell Senate Office Building. Our next caller from High Desert, California. Good afternoon to you, folks.
Good afternoon. Everybody keeps asking, what does she have to gain regarding all this? Well, I'll tell you what, I give her 5 years and she'll have a book out and a major movie role.
Thanks for your comment. Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. You're next.
Yes. I'm very curious about what these issues are. Number one, are we talking about sex addiction? And if so, where are the other women? Or are we talking about erotomania? If so, where are the other men where Miss Hill is concerned? Or is this just an opportunist, Miss Hill, seeking to get ahead in life? What are we talking about here?
Thanks for your comment. Again, this is a chance for you to let us know what you think about the hearings, which are now in its second day. Midland, Texas, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know if anyone has offered to take a lie detector test. I would think that both parties should be able to. If they don't think they're valid, I think it would be interesting to hear later with Judge Thomas how he rules on the cases. You know, I've also noticed Judge Thomas' treatment of women, especially with his wife, who has never, to my view, ever walked by his side. She's always coming in the rear. I think he probably is a very egotistical person.
Thanks for your comment. Denver, Colorado, good evening. Our next caller from Washington, D.C. then. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm an Afro-American from Washington, D.C., and I would like to say first that I am in support of Ms. Hill. And I also would like to say that I think that these hearings are, her timing may be a little late, but evidently something is not right here. And I think that they should look at the big picture instead of trying to ridicule her for coming forth so late.
Thanks for your comment. Next caller from Roanoke, Virginia. Good evening.
Yes, I would like to make 2 points, please. The first is that my husband and I both think that Judge Thomas should be confirmed. And the second is an answer to the man from Utah who said he would be glad if Hatch were not there. Well, Hatch could move to Virginia anytime. We'd love to replace Senator Ropp with Senator Hatch. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. We'll be with you for a few more moments until the hearing reconvenes. Next caller from Detroit, Michigan. Good evening.
Hi, how are you? Kevin Young calling.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I think that this is a classic example of how big the personal and private interest groups have gotten. And they've utilized a sensitive issue like sexual harassment to circumvent the democratic process. And I think that Judge Thomas will be a great asset to the court. I think it's a miscarriage and a travesty.
Okay, thanks for calling. Kent, Washington. Good evening.
Hi, I just wanted to say that the senators on the panel look like a bunch of pompous fools, and that I total support of Judge Thomas. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Denver, Colorado. You're next.
Yes, I just wanted to say I think I am very much in support of Judge Thomas regarding the lady who called earlier saying that she can't believe he's died 100 deaths, that she didn't. Well, there's a big difference between someone who nobody knows like her and a man who is up for the Supreme Court. I hope they confirm it.
Thanks for your comment. La Quinta, California. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Several points I'd like to make. The term uppity black man that Judge Thomas used is a Southern term for a black man that marries a white woman. So he was right when the prejudice was called. She also is what would be called a passive-aggressive woman in the fact that she was very well versed in what she was told to say, in the fact that she would have a blank look when a question was thrown her way. Also, as far as the sexual harassment, the first job my daughter had at 16, she was sexually harassed, and she knew how to handle it from a wage an hour thing that was put on the board. So this woman has no credibility whatsoever. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. You're looking at a scene outside the hearing room in the Russell Senate Office Building. We'll continue with our phone calls. Woodbridge, Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. When I first read Professor Hill's account, I believed that she had been sexually harassed. But today, in watching C-SPAN, where she said that, it was recounted that she said that the reason she didn't come forward was she was concerned for a job and that she'd be fired, etc. She is a Schedule A government worker. She is an attorney. She is a minority. That just does not hold water. So now I don't believe her credibility at all.
Thanks for your call. Houston, Texas. Hello, Houston. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I'd like to just say, first of all, from listening, only God would really be able to know what really took place. I think both Judge Thomas and Professor Hill believe that they told the truth. So if a polygraph was taken, that wouldn't show anything, because if you think you're telling the truth, that's what's going to come across in the polygraph. Also, just a couple of quick comments for the viewers. I would ask that they keep an open mind. Understand the fact that a polygraph, as it's stated, or as I stated, is not going to be conclusive. Government employment is quite different than your standard employment situation. And don't form an opinion before all the facts or the information is in. And I hope that this situation does not polarize blacks and whites, men and women, blacks and blacks, more important. And can I ask you one question, and then I'm going to hang up? Do you know what the minimum qualifications are to be nominated as an Associate Justice for the Supreme Court? Thank you.
I'm sorry to say I don't have the answer to your question, and again, we do want to limit our time here to get your comments on what you're watching. Our next caller is from Everett, Washington. Go ahead, please.
Hello. I just want to make a couple of points. They talk about Ms. Hill's motives. I think she's kind of a ladder climber, and she uses people, such as she used Judge Thomas to get things even after she worked for him. And the other thing, I think it's really sad that no one can feel safe from accusations even 10 years after you've worked for someone or someone's worked for you. And I guess that's it.
Thanks for calling. Aurora, Colorado. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that Chairman Biden, I think, put his finger on the focus point in this whole thing, the presumption of innocence. Judge Thomas has been accused with violent allegations, but the case has not been proven. Therefore, at this point, he must be regarded as innocent.
Thanks for your comment, sir. Falls Church, Virginia.
Yes, sir. I'd like to comment regarding not only the judge, but Anita Hill and the comments from your caller from Houston on polygraph testing. I'm a licensed examiner myself, and an issue like this can be cleared very easily with the correct kind of background and case facts. And I would imagine if a competent examiner had both of these individuals for a couple of hours each, this matter could be resolved in its totality today. I think there's been some bad information put out by the person in Houston. This is called a confirmatory examination. It is to confirm the statements of a witness or someone who's seen something, often maybe negative or positive issues. But this kind of an issue is an easy thing to test on because you're testing on one issue, and that is the fact either it happened or it did not. There is no middle ground on this issue. There is an absolute denial from him, and she absolutely asserts that it did happen.
Thanks for your comment. So just a moment ago, Senator Orrin Hatch moving back inside the rotunda of the Russell office building, Fresno, California. You're next.
Yes, I'm a first-time C-SPAN caller, and I'm in favor of Judge Thomas, and I think that she is lying through her teeth, and they should just confirm him and forget her.
Okay, thanks for calling. Falls Church, Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I've been watching for 2 days your callers calling in who don't know Judge Thomas or Anita Hill having all of these speculative opinions. I've worked for Judge Thomas for 7.5 years, and let me tell you, I have never known a more decent man in my life. And the allegations that I've been listening to are just not about the man that I know, Judge Thomas.
Caller, let me just ask you, you worked for him, I assume, at the EEOC or at the Education Department?
From the very beginning, when he came over until the day he left.
Caller, I'm going to cut you off. We're going to go to Senator John Danforth of Missouri, who is at the stakeout position.
Very rotten system, and the great service that Clarence Thomas has performed for the country is to point it out. To have somebody make a charge and the FBI investigates it, and the Senate then decides, the Judiciary Committee, that there is no basis for further action, that's the way the system is supposed to work. The way it is not supposed to work is for Senate staffers to leak it to the press, for it to be on National Public Radio and in Newsday magazine and then on the networks, and then to parade a human being who has had a very, very distinguished past before this kind of circus atmosphere. It is absolutely rotten to the core, and the American people cannot permit this anymore. And the good thing that's happened is that at least we have focused on it, and now the question is, how do the American people feel about what they've seen, and what do they intend to do about it?
Have you had any feedback on that?
Well, my phone calls are about 100% supportive of Clarence Thomas, but it's not just supportive of Clarence Thomas, the person. It's the fact that people sense that this is wrong, that this process is wrong, that what has been done to this person by the interest groups, by the Senate staffers, and through this kind of circus atmosphere is absolutely wrong, and it's intolerable, and that this is not the America we know. People say that this is like McCarthyism. It's like a throwback to the days of Joseph R. McCarthy and his shows. I wasn't here for McCarthy, but I can tell you that I have never seen any human being put through what Clarence Thomas has been put through for the last week.
And he's in for the long haul. You think
darn right he's in for the long haul. And I'll tell you another thing. Clarence Thomas's position is if the Senate votes against him, that's fine. He's just as happy being where he is. As he has said to me privately, they can take this job and shove it. Those are exactly Clarence Thomas's words to me. But he's not going to pull out. He's certainly not going to pull out. He's not going to turn tail and run. If the Senate, members of the Senate, want to continue doing a job on Clarence Thomas on Monday and Tuesday, if the interest groups want to continue, and they probably will during the next couple of days, and the Senate staffers putting this kind of sleaze out in the public domain, let's expect it. Batten down the hatches. Probably will happen.
You expect more?
Why, I wouldn't put anything past these people, because what they have demonstrated is that in order to further their political agenda, they will do absolutely anything. They will destroy anybody. They will use any despicable tactic to do so. Fairness means nothing to them. Their political agenda means absolutely everything.
Do you think Anita Hill's credibility has been tested today by Senator Specter?
I would certainly say so. When parts of her testimony apparently are lifted out of a novel and out of a court case.
One question about the FBI report, sir. Is it true that a Mr. Bradley, Senator Metzenbaum's staff, leaked the FBI report to the Alliance for Justice, which passed it on to Ms. Totenberg?
Somebody's leaked it.
Can that be checked?
Well, it should be by an FBI investigation or by an independent counsel. Senator Metzenbaum has talked about a Senate Ethics Committee investigation. Everybody knows that's a crock. The Senate Ethics Committee is the graveyard of complaints.
You see the senators here, they don't know whether he did this or not. They're undivided. What if...
Well, I guess you have to prove your innocence now in this country.
Yeah, but I
guess their position is, why, if there's a charge made, doggone it, you better prove your innocence. And that's not justice as I understand.
I know that, but they say they don't know. Now, and you call this a tragedy. Wouldn't it be also a tragedy if he did it and he got on the court?
I think that the system that we have is that if somebody makes a charge, the FBI investigates it. The FBI makes a report. The FBI makes the report available to the Senate committee that is responsible for the confirmation, and that they review it, and they determine whether or not further action is required. All of that was done, and the committee members unanimously decided that no further action was required. Then this went public, and the man was smeared in public.
Do you think Anita Hill was duped, or is she part of a conspiracy?
That was Senator John Danforth, first elected in 1977, a longtime friend of Judge Thomas, with his reaction to the events of the day. We will resume with our phone calls. Blacksburg, Virginia, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. This is Matt Chosen from Blacksburg. I'd just like to see Anita and Judge Thomas together face the committee, and I believe then the truth would come out. I'd also like to say that we too would like Rod to be dismissed and have the senator from Utah. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Bakersfield, California. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I was just about to say this is a real tragedy. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what can you do as a public official? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Regardless how this turns out, his whole reputation is ruined. And he's saying he's willing to stay in the position. It'll never be the same for him. And it's really sad, and my prayers are with him.
Thanks for your comment. Holman, Wisconsin, you're next.
Yes, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to make several comments. First of all, I don't think any American disagrees that this has really saddened the entire country. But, we have to go above this, and we have to maybe turn this around when it's all done. And through that, maybe the American citizens now will be more aware and take a more active part in government and the process of law.
Thanks for your comment. New Orleans, you're next.
Hi, I have two comments. One is about the nomination process. It's a shame that it has to depend on what party the person being nominated is for, whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, instead of what he stands for and the honesty of the man himself.
Okay, I'll let you go with that. As the operator cuts in, we'll go on to Bethesda, Maryland.
Hello?
Yes, you're next.
I would just like to say that one of the reasons that women don't come forward with sexual harassment charges is because to get treated the way that Miss Hill is being treated. And the second thing I'd like to say is Judge Thomas should take a bow.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Springfield, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Roger Stinson. I'm calling from Springfield, Virginia.
Yes.
I think Anita Hill is a scapegoat for the liberal right. Clarence Thomas is a pawn for the conservative right, and the citizens of the U.S. are fools for tolerating this process.
Thanks for your comment. It appears as if Judge Thomas is returning back into the room. I take that back. The hearing is expected to resume shortly, but we'll go with some more phone calls. Alaska, go ahead.
This is Solvang, California.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
First, I would just like to say that I completely support Judge Thomas. And second, I would like to also say that Orrin Hatch is also welcome here in California anytime. Third, I would like to say that I think the FBI investigation was not thorough enough. Either that or I think that Professor Hill should have told them absolutely everything, all details. She knew that this might be a possibility to go to this forum, and I believe that she should have told them all the details.
Thanks for your comment. The hearing is expected to resume in just a moment or so. We'll go on to Sterling, Virginia, though, very quickly.
Yes, first thing I'd like to say is that I think this whole process anymore of parading every bit of dirty laundry that anybody can find is absolutely ridiculous. These people are entitled to a private life, and it should remain private. Judge a person by their professional career. Stop digging for every little bit of political leverage that you can find.
Thank you, Sterling, Virginia. And the hearing does
I
resume.
apologize for keeping the witnesses waiting, and as this saying goes, we've got good news for you and bad news for you. After a caucus of the committee, the full committee, Democrats and Republicans, in deciding how we meet our responsibilities to the full Senate to be able to conduct and conclude this hearing in this fair way to everyone involved, and particularly to the nominee, it has been concluded as follows, and essentially unanimously concluded, that we will reconvene tomorrow at noon. That the reason why we are not going to go forward with this panel tonight is that if we go forward with this panel tonight, under the agreed procedures, we would be required to, understandably, go forward with the next panel tonight. The likelihood of that occurring and finishing in a remotely reasonable hour is incredibly unlikely. So, if the witnesses are able, and we sincerely hope they are, we will ask them to come back at this panel, Ms. Horschner and Wells, Mr. Carr, Mr. Paul, tomorrow at noon. It is our hope, although not full expectation, to finish this hearing tomorrow, to give our colleagues in the Senate, as we were charged, an opportunity to contemplate and mull over the record and what they have heard and seen on Monday and Tuesday. There is no question, as I informed the leadership when they ask if we could conduct this hearing fully by vote Tuesday night and still give the Senate time to fully consider every aspect of it, my unequivocal answer was no, we could not. Then the Senate decided that we were going to do it in that time so that there would be a final vote in order to lift the unanimous consent agreement from last week. So we're operating under some limitations. Our goal continues to be to find the truth. We believe that full night's sleep may help elucidate that goal somewhat, not for the panel, but for the committee and the staff. And so we will reconvene tomorrow at noon and go hopefully as long as it takes to finish.
I don't think I'll make the last shuttle out tonight, huh?
Guess not. I don't mean to be standoffish, but I've elected not to talk to anyone.
I just wanted to know whether he was...
That concludes today's hearings by the Senate Judiciary Committee. As Senator Biden said, they will resume tomorrow at noon Eastern Time. And of course, C-SPAN will continue with its live gavel-to-gavel coverage at that time. In the meantime, we have reopened our phone lines to get your reaction. You'll see the number on the bottom of your screen, and we'll welcome your comments. Our first caller tonight is from Cleveland, Ohio. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd just like to the issue of motive. It seems to be coming up on a regular basis. I'd just like to say that clearly Ms. Hill will become the expert in terms of sexual harassment. You'll see her on all the morning programs. You'll see her on Phil and Oprah and whatnot. I agree with the earlier caller that stated to have a movie deal and a book contract. Clearly she's a power-driven individual. Generally that's not a bad thing, but I believe that the way her behavior has been exhibited, she's clearly out for her own good. The second thing I'd just like to say is that we're all responsible in some way for this. And I would just urge all of us that are speaking today and trying to get phone calls through, call your senator. Do something. This will not change unless we begin to let them know how we feel.
Thanks for your comment. Denver, Colorado. Good evening. Yes, good evening, Denver.
Yeah.
You have a comment, sir?
Yeah, I'd like to know why, in the words of General Schwarzkopf, what's the statute of limitations on bovine what do you say, scatology? I mean, after 10 years, I think, after 5 confirmations, this man shouldn't be going through this.
Thanks for your comment. Stafford, Virginia, you're next.
Okay. Yes, I just saw Senator Danforth on your program, and I got to say I agree with him 100%. I think the Senate has sunk to an all-time low. And what I'd really like to see is Senator Kennedy interrogated for 105 days over the Palm Springs affair. Thanks.
Thanks for your comment. You're looking at Senator Herb Khol, Democrat of Wisconsin, elected just last year, took office just last year, one of the junior members on the Senate Judiciary Committee. San Diego, California. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. I'm a little bit concerned that people seem to be forgetting why Clarence Thomas's nomination was objected to or challenged in the first place. People are often talking about the travesty of this particular hearing, and I also would like to note the travesty that we were on the brink of confirming someone who would not present or commit to any disposition on issues affecting the entire population. We waited a long time for a passionate response from Clarence Thomas to all of the discussions and hearings, and the only person he seems to defend with ferocity is himself. So I have the same question as certain other senators about what this says of his judicial temperament, where it was his sort of fierce defense when facing questions of the rights of all women and all underrepresented minority groups.
Thank you very much. Alexandria, Virginia, you're next.
Hi. I believe if Judge Thomas had made advances to Ms. Hill, she accepted those advances. She could have put a stop to them. Said she's on seeing him and working with him. This makes no sense.
Gilroy, California. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name's Tony, and I was discussing this with my father, and this goes to motive of why Anita Hill would do this. First of all, they had her sign an affidavit telling her that she have to back this up in public. And then they leaked it and put her on the spot. Now, if she doesn't back up what she said in that affidavit, she could be disbarred, and she wouldn't have anything. So the motive is to save her job, save her life.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Los Angeles, California.
Hello.
Yes.
This is my first call on C-SPAN.
We're glad you got through. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm a 72-year-old woman, and I raised 2 children alone, and I went through harassment, and I know what she means when you say you're afraid of losing your job because they can ban you from getting jobs anyplace else. They can blacklist you so that you have no idea what a terrible feeling it is. So I don't understand people that aren't willing to wait till the whole story is in.
Thanks for your comments. Springfield, Virginia. Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, Springfield.
Yes, I'm calling because I think that a lot of people are missing the point here entirely. I think both the judge and Ms. Hill are victims of a very ambiguous law, one that does not clearly define what constitutes sexual harassment. And as one who was recently publicly humiliated in the House, on the House side of the Hill by Congressman Livingston of Louisiana, I have witnessed firsthand what people's inability to grasp this law really means. And I think what really needs to be done is the House and Senate need to get together and come up with a true definition of sexual harassment so that people won't be put in this position.
Thanks for your comment. San Juan, Puerto Rico. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. And first of all, I would like to congratulate C-SPAN for its coverage. I have a couple of comments to make. The first one is the more I listen to Judge Thomas, the more I like the person, and the more qualified I believe he is for that position. I believe that he has a strong set of values. He perspires of those values, and he has conducted himself not only as a brilliant judge, but as a gentleman. The second point is that, Mr. Hatch has received several offers tonight through C-SPAN. I would like to extend the offer to Senator Hatch. Whenever we become a state in Puerto Rico, if he wants to move down, he's more than welcome here. I think that the people from Utah must be extremely proud of Senator Hatch for his extraordinary performance at the hearings. And the other point I wanted to make is that Senator Kennedy should take advantage of this long weekend and go fishing to Chappaquiddick. Thank you.
Thank you, San Juan. We'll continue with our phones for about 35 or 40 minutes. Next caller, Fairfax, Virginia. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. What I'm really hoping is going to happen now, since it's kind of obvious that the judge has withstood the rash of criticism, I'm hoping that the perjury charges that Senator Specter spoke of will certainly be looked into, and I'm hoping also that the leak will be looked into. The Legal Times ran an ad asking a while back by some of these left-wing groups that dirt on Judge Thomas be dug up. And the stuff is out there, and it's kind of amazing. The committee members are unaware of it. But here's a guy who went through 5 confirmation hearings, and it's also interesting to see the panel he got there that just got kind of moved off. You had one black woman, one white woman, one black man, and one white man. I mean, you talk about sexual and racial politics. The liberals have sunk to it, and the press is eating it up. It's terrible what they're doing to this guy.
Thanks for your comment.